This is formation of tissue fluid. On the right hand side we have the artery, on the left hand side we have the vein. So this arteriole here is dividing to form a capillary bed. So this is bringing in the red blood cells containing lots of oxygen along with glucose as a nutrient required by these cells here that sit in between all these blood vessels. You need to remember that the capillary walls are quite thin because they're only one cell thick, and they've also got gaps between the cells. So you can see these little dots here. These are basically showing that where there are gaps between the cells, the little nutrients and gases can actually diffuse straight through and out into the surrounding cells, waiting for the glucose and the oxygen. So what happens over here is we have a high hydrostatic pressure created by the contraction of the left ventricle of the heart. When that happens, it forces out all these nutrients through the gaps, but anything that is big, like a red blood cell, stays in the capillary because that is too big to get through the gaps. You've also got plasma proteins, which again are too big to be able to get through the gaps, but things like glucose and oxygen and water are able to make their way out of the capillary and into the space between the cells. This is where respiration will take place inside the cells, and so that glucose and that oxygen will be used in aerobic respiration, and instead you will produce carbon dioxide and more water. Now the carbon dioxide and the water will return to the capillary by diffusion, because there will be a high concentration of carbon dioxide in here and a low concentration of carbon dioxide in here, so that will return by diffusion, and we'll go on to later how the red blood cells are going to carry that carbon dioxide. And the water returns back into the capillaries down the osmotic water potential gradient, and that's because, if you remember these plasma proteins that were not able to escape from the capillaries, when you get to here, the hydrostatic pressure that was created over here by the contraction of the heart has basically all but gone now. So most of that hydrostatic pressure has actually gone, and so what you're left with is an osmotic negative pressure that pulls back the water from surrounding tissues into this capillary bed. So that water potential, that negative water potential, is created by the presence of these plasma proteins still in these capillaries, and that negative water potential creates a gradient that water moves down by osmosis. Any extra water can also be taken into the lymph vessels. So that's because not all tissue fluid returns to the blood capillaries. Some is drained away, and basically you have lots of vessels look like this that are very similar to capillaries, and they drain together and eventually return all the fluid back to the vein by the heart, which is the vena cava.